about accessibility, and Rorry Preddy will be with us. I am following him on social media for a long time and very excited to have him here today. Hi, Rorry, how are you?
I'm pretty great, and thank you so much for inviting me for this talk. It's really dear to me, this topic on accessibility, and we've got some great things to share today, and hopefully we can do one or two demos and show some slides also. And then I don't know the exact format, but if we can take some live questions, that also would be great.
Okay, great, thank you. So can you please introduce yourself before we start?
So I've been in developer relations for 10 years. So developer relations is looking after developer communities, engaging with customers, making sure that the technology they use is aligned to their business strategies. I've also been a developer for about 22 years, since 2001. I've joined Microsoft 3 years ago as part of their developer relations team. And then I've joined the developer advocates team about a year ago. Now, what the advocates do is that they heavily engage with communities, customers, and developers to make sure that the experience that developers have is wondrous. So I engage with the product team, make sure that when you develop a piece of software using a Microsoft technology, that the experience, the engagement is aligned to our expectations. I speak to the product team, I speak to the customers and developers, and I also make sure that I'm there on the field and really at the heart of the developer community to make sure that we're aligned with the developer ecosystem.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to talk about programming for accessibility today, but what is accessibility?
That's a good question. I think it's easier to define what accessibility isn't. And this is a really confusing topic because people think, wait, I know accessibility. Accessibility is that wheelchair parking in the supermarket. That's what they understand as accessibility. But in truth, accessibility isn't really what isn't, but what is. Now at Microsoft, we're one of the largest advocates for accessibility. And the reason, and recently, well, not recently, our CEO, Satya Nadella, he has a child who has accessibility requirements. And he's made it a passion of his to drive the culture of accessibility through Microsoft. So we're all mandated to include diversity, inclusion, and accessibility as part of our core culture. So what accessibility really is to Microsoft is the design of products and services that everyone, including people with disabilities, can use them. It's not designing for people with disabilities. It's designing around your processes to make sure that you include everyone in every organization to achieve more. We also understand that disability is also confusing. Now, when you go to a doctor and you say to him, oh, I'm not feeling too good, and the doctor says, yeah, I think you've got the disability. No, that doesn't actually work. The only time that you feel disabled is when you go into a piece of technology or an engagement and you can't interact with it. So for example, now I'm starting to, and I tried to lose weight and try to get exercise. I've actually just bought this last week, this health tracker. And I bought one of those smart scales, and I jumped onto the smart scale and I entered my height. I've got dwarfism, so I'm pretty short, 4'1", 120 centimeters, and then I entered my weight, 65 kilos. I actually weigh 50 kilos now. I've lost 15 kilos. But I entered my weight and my height, and then they had a little picture of a baby and a little picture of a man. So I thought, oh, let me put the baby in there because I'm not really that high. Let me put the baby in there. And I put the little details in there, and I pressed the button and I said, calculate, jumped on the scale, and it did its all things. And it called me obese. And I thought to myself, I feel disabled because I'm not obese. And the only reason that this tools and technology didn't understand me is because it wasn't designing for accessibility, and it wasn't catering for the fact that someone who has an accessibility requirements, if you don't cater for them, they're going to feel disabled. So what it should have said on that scale is, do you fall outside the norm, outside what the products was designed for? And I should have said yes, and then I wouldn't have felt disabled. So that's really what accessibility is, and also what disability is.
Okay, thank you. So, can you tell us about the inclusive design?
Yes, great. Thank you. Thank you for asking. So now that we know that accessibility, what accessibility is and what disability is, so then how do you actually then cater for people who have accessibility requirements? And I've got a nice slide deck here that, first of all, we've defined accessibility, and now let's go look at disability. But then we've also got design principles. Now, to design for inclusive design, you need to understand what you're designing for. And you need to understand that you're designing for perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And these are the WCAG principles. And they say when you design for inclusive design, you need to kind of cater for these real motivating factors. Now, once you have these factors, you start to look at persona spectrums. So inclusive design is also looking at not designing for the average, but designing for a broad enough spectrum that you can cater for everyone. So here's some spectrums. We've got Claudia, Ashley, and Ron. Now, Ron is my favorite go-to because he's actually part of the silver generation, the elderly generation. He's 82 years old, retired, multiple conditions, arthritis, losing his hearing, cataracts, and hips and replacement. And Ron actually falls into the same design spectrum as a child. Now, you're saying to myself, but wait a second, Ron's elderly. But Ron has sight that isn't developed, or Ron might have, the ability not to really have mobility anymore. So he falls into the same kind of category as maybe someone who's disabled, or also someone who's not developed. And as a result, when you design for Ron, you actually design for people who have mobility issues. So you have these persona spectrums, you design these persona labs, so accessibility persona labs. Then once you have that, you start to actually do 3 steps. You recognize exclusion, so you understand the persona of Ron, sometimes he might be excluded, and why you need to add him. You solve for one, extend to many. Now, solving for Ron, you're also solving for someone who has mobility issues, someone who might not be as mobile able. And then you learn from the diversity. You rinse and repeat and try to actually improve your persona spectrum. So here's a nice example that I use. It's a classic example, and this is an amputee, someone who has lost an arm. Now, if you go to the persona spectrum, you'll see that the one arm is in the same spectrum as an arm injury, someone who's in a motorbike accident, or a new parent. And you're thinking to yourself, why? Parents aren't, they don't have a disability, but I promise you, I've been a parent, I've got 2 kids, and you're financially, physically, mentally sleep deprived. You have a lot to do. And now when you actually go into your manager or your stakeholders and you say, I want to design for that person with one arm. Now, the American statistics for disabilities say that there's only 26,000 of them. You can't viably create a business plan around that. But when you look at temporary disabilities and also situation, then it starts to add up to 21 million. That's 21 million people now. If you design for just not being able to use your arm, say, let's just say a cell phone and being able to use your thumb, now you're actually designing for a broader, you're including more. There are 1 billion people out there with accessibility requirements. When you take friends, family, and people who are heavily invested in them, it's more than 3 billion people. So designing for accessibility, really including a lot more people than what you consider. Then once you have that persona spectrum, you superimpose it on your journey. So this example is a ticketing scenario. You've got registration, navigation, and checkout. You're buying a ticket in an airline, before COVID happened. Then you can see there that right at the end of the checkout experience, you've got experience. And that's that survey they do there. That's really where the AI comes in. And we're going to superimpose our personas in there with our one-arm entry, and everything changes. The inclusive design now says, wait a second, change it for that persona spectrum, responsive design for the site landing, capture, single sign-on, accessibility help desk, one-button access, and then right at the end, AI adjustment, because you're changing. Remember, the first steps that we said there's learn from diversity. The AI will adjust it to be able to cater for new situations. And that's something also that I want to demo to you a little bit later about the Caption Bot. The Caption Bot captions pictures, but it learns from everyone else's review of those pictures of whether it's doing a good job or not. AI has to learn. And we believe that data erodes. So the data model and the data itself erodes. So you need to constantly learn with your AI.
Okay, so you said something about VCAG. So can you tell us about what is VCAG? Is it standard for programming for accessibility?
I'm going to give you a demo. So this is a great example of what WCAG is. So I'm going to open up Chrome and I'm going to open up a site here called W3org. No, not that. This is the demo, and this is a site that people use, for example. And in here, you've got inaccessible and accessible. Now, inaccessible is a bad page that you can't really use for accessibility. And then accessible, when I click on that, it looks exactly like the page, because someone has done nasty things with HTML to actually get that done. You can see here with the accessible page, if I look at an inspector, there's an image alt. So image source, okay, that one doesn't have an alt there, and they've actually been lazy there. Yeah, okay, so there should be an alt tag. Let's go here, inspect. There we go. Alt tag city lights your access to the city. Now, an alt tag is actually a WCAG requirement, because what it gives you is, if you have a screen reader, and I switch on the screen reader software, it will read that alt tag for that image and allow people who don't have visual abilities to read that. And that's one of the requirements for WCAG, the Web Center for Accessibility Guidelines. It's guiding you to be able to do that. Now, at Microsoft, we subscribe to WCAG, and we have tools, and one of them is the Accessibility Insights for Web. So this tool set here, you can get it as a Chrome and a Edge plugin. This is the same tools that we actually test our products with. Microsoft Office, Microsoft Windows, all of our websites, they are mandated to have to be WCAG compliant before we actually go there. So we're going to go into the inaccessible site here, and we're going to switch on the accessibility insights, and you've got all of these nice little tools there. You can switch colors on and off, headings, but we're going to run FastPass. Now, FastPass checks whether you're a WCAG client. So we run FastPass. You can see here we've got some violations, and it says WCAG 1.41. The color contrast is not good for colorblind people. The HTML lang WCAG 3.11. You need a language attribute there, so people know what language you're going to do. Label attribute, link, and there's the image alt. So a lot of them, image alt there is not also compatible. Let's go back to the page here. Where were we? There we. And it now narrates it. It actually shows you on the picture where your WCAG settings are incorrect. Now, if I click on here, and I can see there that the image alt is not correct, and it will tell you there the inspect HTML, the success criteria. I can click on WCAG there, and it will go to the w3.org, understand success criteria, non-text content, and then also I can file the issue to GitHub, and I can fix one of those functions. So WCAG really is your broad spectrum of what you need to cater for. We also have a detailed, if I just refresh here, we have a detailed checklist here that you can actually do with Accessibility Insights for Web. And you can go here for assessment. And assessment really goes through a lot more details here. We've got automated checks, keyboards, focus, and it really goes through the entire WCAG and settings here, so you can actually go in and test your results. So yeah, so WCAG really is the web standard for testing accessibility.
Okay, perfect. So you know, I'm a programmer. What should I do while I'm designing a web application or a Windows application?
Okay, so there's 3 stages you can actually test in. Now, a lot of people used to test your accessibility right at the end, and that was bolt-on. And that was just, like right at the end, you ship the product, then you go and test your accessibility. And that's a big mistake, because when you know that when you have a bug and you've already shipped it, it's very impossible to actually fix it. So what we'd rather do is that we've created tools and technologies that allow you to do this with DevOps. So you can do it at the beginning of your project. You can do it now when you have your web front end, and you can also do it, and we're going to show you with Immersive Reader on legacy applications. So let's first show you with DevOps, and I'm going to create a DevOps pipeline right now on your blog. We're going to go into Azure DevOps, and we're going to create a DevOps pipeline with a project that I've already created that uses Java and Maven to actually test some accessibility projects. So if you want to see the project here, let's go to Rorry Preddy. So let's go into here. And the project is a basic Maven project. I'll open it up for you here. Well, let's actually open up a new window here. Let's go new window, and I want to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm going to file, I'm going to open recent here. And I'm going to open up a Maven project that does some testing for that. Maven. So this is now the same engine we use for accessibility insights, I'm using now for Maven. So I've got my actual pages here. So I've got a normal page, and this is just a page that doesn't have any issues with it. And then I've also got an error page. This has some errors. Now I can run these with unit testing. So I can actually go run the unit test. It'll start up a Chrome browser in the background and test all of my capabilities for me, and then come back. And I want to take this now and run this in a DevOps pipeline. So you can see the test results here. If I run this, it will come back here. So eventually, of course, it's not going to show in the demo, but it will run through all of these tests and say, yes, everything is running right now. I think it's probably because I'm running something in the background. Let's go back into the project here. So let's create a new project, and I'll show you how to actually incorporate that. Now, this is at the beginning of your project. As you check in code, it's going to check everything for you. So I'm going to call this Mert Java, and I'm going to give it a public profile. I'm going to go create. And then I'm going to create a pipeline with that exact project. And then that project is going to run as part of the CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery, and it's going to check my pages for me. And you can check your remote pages or local pages. So I've got my DevOps pipeline, my DevOps project. I'm going to go pipelines and create a new pipeline. Now, pipeline is your builder, your kind of your task that you want to run on Azure DevOps. So I'm going to go great. I'm going to create a GitHub pipeline, because I'm actually pulling that project from GitHub, and I'm going to search for, it's already linked to my repository here. There we go, Maven, Xcore Maven, which has all of those tests. There's 36 tests on those pages, and I've got a little YAML file that I've pre-written here, just saying go and run all the Maven tests, and then print out the results to Surefire, and that will be picked up by Azure DevOps. So I'm going to run that there. So this is at the beginning of your project. During your project, you're also going to run this, but you're also going to use some manual tests with the Accessibility Insights Chrome plugin. So that job will run, and we'll come back to it. And right at the end, if you can't change your accessibility with the legacy project, I'm going to introduce you to Immersive Reader. Now, Immersive Reader is a tool that allows you, let's go, we want to actually go to there we go. So Immersive Reader is a project here that actually goes in and takes legacy application. So I've got an index.jsp, and I've got some text here. So Immersive Reader is a tool that implements proven technologies to improve reading comprehensions for emerging readers. And that's an accessibility requirement. Remember what we said, that you need to create something that is visible. So I've got this HTML page, and I want to just make it accessible. And how I do that is I add a little bit of JavaScript here, and the JavaScript gets a token and then goes into the Azure Cognitive Services here. You can see here, launch async, and it goes and calls the Immersive Reader. Now, the Immersive Reader is just a button you put on there, and it uses our cognitive services. And what it does is something spectacular, because it creates a, let's go here. So the Immersive Reader is a tool that implements, and remember that there? And now I've got a little button there, and I can click on Immersive Reader, and it'll create this entire now visual representation. And I don't know if you can hear that.
Immersive Reader is a tool that implements proven techniques to improve.
Now that's talking to me, but now I can actually go in and change the text. And let's just say that I need bigger text or different themes. I can also go in and get speech and syllables and nouns and show labels. And most importantly, I could go line focus. So, and then I can do picture dictionary. And what is the national language of Turkish?
Turkish?
Yeah, okay, then obviously it's going to be Turkish. Let's just see if it's catered for here. Turkish. There we go. Document. And I've just translated the document right now into Turkish, and I can read it back.
Dil öğrenenler ve öğrenme farklılıkları olan kişiler için okuma anlamı.
With a few lines of code, I've now converted the entire document, and I can convert any legacy applications using Immersive Reader. Now, let's just summarize that. So at the beginning, I can use my DevOps pipeline. You can see here my DevOps pipeline, the job is run, and I've got a nice little dashboard here that I can go see let's go here, boards. I want to go summary. Repos, pipelines, boards, work items, sprints. Okay, well, it ran successfully, and I can go add a widget here, and then I can go I want to go work links. No, I want to just say test results. Test results trend. There we go, done editing. And this should actually say configure widget, and I can actually pull in the test results that we have here. There we go, select build pipeline, the pipeline that we created, and save, and it should actually, there we go, and yeah, so pass 100%. So that's all our test pass, and now we can every time we check in, it'll test it again, and we can also go to the city lights and run it randomly. And then finally, if we can't fix those problems, we can use Immersive Reader to actually go in and use AI to convert it and do that. So that really is all of the designing and testing you can do with all the tools throughout the entire process. And I've got a nice little slide here that kind of sums it up, because you want to do your accessibility testing throughout the entire process. Wireframe, product backlog, sprint backlogs, the entire process and time, you want to check for accessibility. You don't want to actually check for accessibility right at the end.
Okay, that's great. So I wonder, are there any programming languages have accessibility features built in?
Yes, HTML5. Now you're saying to me, Rory, wait a second, HTML5 isn't a programming language. Well, first of all, it kind of is. Now HTML4 took a very long time to become 5. Did you ever wonder why? Because what they were trying to do is create HTML5 into an accessibility language. So I'm going to introduce you something called ARIA. So web, ARIA, let's go here. So ARIA, web. So accessibility, introduction to ARIA. There we go. The Web Accessibility Initiative. If you ever wanted to know what HTML5 is based on, it's ARIA. Now, what ARIA is, accessibility-rich internet application suite, defines a way to make web content and web applications more accessible. HTML5 is based on it, and means that if you code HTML5, you code a compliant ARIA tool and application. And it's only when people actually go and try to be clever and not code semantically clean HTML5. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. So here's the inaccessible site here, right? And the accessible site. Now, when we go to the accessible site and we look at a list, and I go inspect here, and I look at my list here, you can see there that I've got list item, LI items, and it's proper HTML. When I go to the inaccessible site, which they're going to use non-semantic HTML there, and they're playing silly buggers, and I go to inspect, you can see there that they're actually using BR tags. They're not using HTML5 really, they're just using BR tags. Because what they're doing is they're actually violating ARIA compliance. So the most compliant language really to code your applications is plain semantic HTML5.
Great. So you mentioned a lot of the AI. So how can we use AI for accessibility? And then I want to ask you about the cognitive services. How can they help us for accessibility?
Okay, so I've showed you Immersive Reader, and that is one of the cognitive services.
Oh.
The other AI service I want to do for you now, with Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, even a lot of the web tools, even Google has started to do this. When you paste an image or you use an image, it actually will scan the image and see exactly what the image is in there. So a screen reader or someone who's visually impaired can actually read that image. So I want to introduce you to something called the Caption Bot, and this is a breakthrough technology, Caption Bot demo.azure site. And what this Caption Bot, it uses one of our cognitive services. And recently we announced that we can beat a human being in captioning an image. So we did the no caps, it's a Facebook competition, and we beat a human being in captioning. So I'm going to upload a photo, and I'm going to take this photo, and this is of Bill Gates. Let's just see if I can actually get as the celebrities one. I want to see. I might not find it. So let's find it. Oh, there we go. So this is Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer. I'm not too sure that person is, and it's analyzing the photo, and it's going to go look in and see if it can actually see what these people are doing. I think it's Steve Ballmer, Satya Nadella, Bill Gates are posing for a picture. Posing, as in it understands, the AI understands what they're doing. So let's take another picture. I want to do a cat on a blanket. So I'm going to search for cat on a blanket. Let me find a picture for a cat. Well, let's take that picture. That looks like that. I'm going to save that picture there. Save image as, hopefully it's not a funny image. There, okay. Save, and I'm going to upload that picture then to the caption. Okay, so let's try another here. So I'm going to upload this picture here. Let's go downloads. It's a cat on a blanket. Where did I save that to? Hold on one second. Let me just see where I saved that to. And I saved that to my desktop. Great. Okay. And there we go. And it's going to scan it. Let's see what happens there. I think it's a cat standing on a couch. How cool is that? So this is AI being able to look at your pictures, being able to do this quickly. Now remember, you can tie into that, and you can do this at millions and millions of images with that, and it does it better than a human being. You've got Immersive Reader, you've got all of these tools and technologies running in the background that allow you to really create accessibility software. You've got your DevOps pipeline that scans your page for you. You've got all of these tools and technologies, and we're at a stage now that we can create accessibility software, utilize AI to be able to do it. Now you can see here, it says, how do I do? Because the minute I do great there, you know what it does? It goes and relearns the AI model. We've got an AI model standing there, and it's waiting for human beings to also train it. That's what human beings, the interaction with AI has become. We're retraining it by our engagement. Now, one of the actual things that we also do is we train emotions. So the next question is, what about emotions? Now, we're retraining emotions, and I want to introduce you to another tool here called Emoji. So Emoji allows you to understand sarcasm. So you can see here, let's go share screen. And Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen here. Great. Okay, so you can see my screen. So what we're talking about is, can AI understand emotions? So this is Deepmoji. You can go to deepmoji.mit.edu, and it trained it on 55 billion tweets, trying to learn emotions. And we were also looking at our AI to learn emotions, and other tools also, Siri, Google, all of them are training their tools to learn emotions. And it's important for an AI to know emotional intelligence, because when you have accessibility issues and you're screaming, so if I've got an Alexa robot and I'm screaming at it, hey, Alexa, help me, help me, help me, it needs to understand emotion. So we can go here, I broke my toe, and then I can go, oh, joy, and I'm being sarcastic. Let's just go submit here, and it knows that I'm not being happy. Even though I said, oh, joy there, it understands that I'm in trouble. It understands that you can see here I'm being sarcastic, and it needs to change and AI adjust to accommodate my accessibility requirements. It's the same as if I've fallen and I need help, and I say, help, help, help. It will understand the emotional context of my engagement. So that's also why you want to build emotions into AI, artificial intelligence. If you have Cortana in Microsoft Windows, Cortana has an emotional awareness.
Can you show us an example?
I can scream at Cortana. So I can't show you the example, but if you go to Cortana emotional intelligence, I want to lose you again here. So yeah, the future of Cortana is emotional and potential. So everything has emotional intelligence right now. We have an entire team that is creating emotional AI around that. Now, if you want to know how Deepmoji gets that, you can see here, let's go hide, and you can teach that about, you can go into there, and there's a whole study here. Deepmoji is a research here, and let's go paper, and it'll teach you how they learned emotional context here, using billions of emojis to learn any domain references. What they actually did here is that they actually, when you do a smiley face at the end of your tweet, they realized that you're being happy or sad and it was an emotion. So then they took that tweet language and categorized it against different emotions. So if you said, oh, joy, then they knew it was sarcasm, and they categorized it with a sarcasm emoji. So they started teaching these AIs to be able to engage with humans according to pictures. It's the same as this picture here with the Caption Bot. The reason this Caption Bot, how they taught this is that they taught it on language. So let's go to another picture here quickly. Let's see what it picks up with me. So let's go here. That's me analyzing image. It should say I'm happy. Maybe let's see. I think it's a person smiling for the camera. It learned the word smiling. It looked at the person there who, that picture, and it understood that they were actually happy.
Oh, great. So we went over all the software part, but I want to talk about hardware. So maybe most of people have already seen the Xbox adaptive controller. There are lots of tweets about it and some posting on LinkedIn. So can we use it other purposes rather than gaming? And also, can you tell us about this hardware?
So the Xbox controller was created in 2015 as part of a hackathon. So we have something called accessibility hackathons, where we have an idea and we want to actually bring in people who can help us with those idea. And after that, in 2016 and 17, they actually created a hardware-based software system. So let's go Xbox adaptive controller. and in the Xbox Adaptive Controller, and it allows for people to be able to use it who don't have full use of their hands. What it means is that if you tap, if you can see there, if you tap there with your arm or your hand, or if you're an amputee, it will pick up what you're trying to do and you can program it. It also has the ability to be programmable. Now, what people are doing there is that they're taking the Xbox controller and they're plugging it into Arduino, Nintendo Switches, into your Windows PC, your controllers. And it's giving people an entire ability to be more mobile around the Xbox adaptive controller. And I've got a video for you. If you bear with me 1 second, Xbox. I just want to make sure adaptive controller, whether you can actually hear this. And this is a video that I play sometimes here. Let's go videos. And we want to actually do Super Bowl commercial. That's it. And this really sums it up there, the Xbox controller. So let's play. That's the one I want. So tell me if you can actually hear the sound.
My name is Ian. I'm Taylor. My name
Can
is
you hear the
Evan,
sound?
and I am 9.5 years old. I only have one. And yeah. I love video games, my friends, my family, and again, video games. Whenever I play, it makes me feel happy. The fun that you get to have with connecting with your friends. You make your own rules?
It's his way of interacting with his friends when he can't physically otherwise do it.
When I'm playing with a regular controller, there's some things that don't work for me. It's difficult for me to use both joysticks and the D-pad at the exact same time. And it just slowed me down a bunch more, while other people were like...
She's never had the freedom to play at the level she knows she could.
I never thought it was unfair. I just thought, hey, this is the way it is and it's not going to change. What I like about the adaptive controller is that now everyone can play. I don't even have to look at the controller and just be like looking at the screen like, hey, yeah.
You never want your kid to feel like an outsider or an other.
One of the biggest fears early on is, how will Owen be viewed by the other kids? He's not different when he plays.
It's a little challenging, but that's the whole point of gaming. I can hit the buttons just as fast as they can. And I think I can crush my friends. No matter how your body is or how fast you are, you can play. It's a really good thing to have in this world.
And I think this is the best product Microsoft have ever done.
It meant a lot to a lot of people. And being able to program for accessibility also means a lot to a lot of people. So when you add a caption, an alt image to a picture, and someone reads it with a screen reader, and they feel that you've actually catered for them and catered for their persona spectrum, it will really drive a feeling of quality, of engagement, and inclusion in your software.
Yeah, perfect. So, do you have any additional words before we finish?
Yes, so you can reach all of what I've mentioned here in Microsoft.com/accessibility. So everything I've said here, also with products hearing and the accessibility insights, Microsoft Teams, everything that you AI for accessibility, or you can access it for Microsoft.com/accessibility. And it's not only Microsoft who's doing that. Apple, Google, Oracle, IBM, all of the big software developers are doing this, because at the end of the day, the human society has realized that we need to take everyone forward. We need to make everyone's life meaningful and make the software experience special. But thank you so much for your time, Mert, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak here.
And thank you for accepting to join us today. It's a very good, I said, perfect session for me. I learned a lot, and I'll tell my friends about this plugin and the Azure DevOps stuff. Thank you very much. Many thanks to you and the people who are watching us today. and will watch our session on YouTube later. So hope to see you again in another episode.
Thanks, Mert. Thanks, everyone. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.